Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media. Today we are decoding tweets the day after. It's January 20th, 2019, and Trump just gave us a
browbeating?
Well, I don't know, but it was spectacular, and that was on January 19th, and so now we're going to be kind of quarterbacking this and seeing what did we see. The first tweet reads, "Always heard that as president, it's all about the economy. Well, we have one of the best economies in the history of our country. Big GDP, lowest unemployment, companies coming back to the U.S. in big numbers, great new trade deals happening, and more. But little media coverage." Mention.
And basically, he keeps hammering on this because generally elections are won by how the economy is. And this is all about the 2020 election. His tweets right now are just bombing the Democrats, the demon rats, with the 2020 election, and he'll mention it in other tweets coming up, but he's mentioned it before. What's really going on here? He just keeps hammering and hammering and hammering the truth, because right now, it's about the only place you're going to find it. You'll find it here and there when they report that there's this good or bad, this good thing in the economy, but then they will not associate the good thing with Trump. Okay? So they'll say, yes, it's this. Yes, it's this. Yes, that is historic. Nothing then is said about Trump. He has come in as the great disruptor, but he is turning this into a completely new ball game, and it's all the old forms are being shattered into pieces. And this is, again, as I say, about the 2020 election, and with the shutdown, and with the barrier, and with the fight with Pelosi, every single day, he is helping them dig their own graves. By the time the 2020 election comes around, we won't even need to have it because there won't even be a demon rat party.
It will be without a contender.
And with the economy, he's only just started, folks. Don't forget, this is against all odds that he has fought, with every single group fighting him, because he has turned the tide by using a different approach. None of the bureaucratic nonsense that has kept us into this bowing to the Queen since 1776. No, this is basically fighting his opponents, the U.S. Fed, the Congress, the Supreme Court, the mainstream media. And still, with all of that, he is winning, winning, winning. I challenge anyone to please send in a remark about something he isn't winning on. So anything, doesn't matter, send it in. I'd love to see it because I haven't seen one yet.
Be careful and try staying in your house. Large parts of the country are suffering from tremendous amounts of snow and near record-setting cold. Amazing how big this system is. Wouldn't be bad to have a little of that good old-fashioned global warming right now.
That is so funny. I cracked up when I read that. That is only a Trump could say that. How could he say that? Before he came to power, they were going to pass laws saying that if you said that global warming wasn't true, you would be locked up in jail. In Europe, if you are a climate denier, they now call it, because it isn't global warming anymore, because the globe's not warming and the statistics were lies, and it shows that, in fact, it was all made up, that part. In fact, it's the opposite. It is just astounding. There isn't global warming. We've entered into a mini ice age. And then they changed it to climate change. Well, what kind of climate change is that? It is so beautiful. And remember, Trump saved us $5 trillion by getting us out of the Paris Accord. It is dead. Remember all those countries that said, we're going to continue on without America. No, because the only thing happening in the first year was America was going to be bilked for, what was it? I can't even remember, $500 billion, if I'm not mistaken. So the carbon credits, that was supposed to be the new world economy. He just simply said goodbye to it, and now deadpan with tongue-in-cheek can make a joke like this? Give me some old-fashioned global warming right now.
This is just more propaganda. And what if you go to our site at aimfortruth.org, we have several citizen intelligence reports there to talk about all the amazing free energy technology that's available in the world today. And we could roll that out right away. And we need to be paying attention to this because we keep bringing up to you that we're getting ready to move into a cold age. And we're going to need heat, and we are going to need free energy, and we need to get off this petrochemical limitation scarcity model and start thinking, where is the abundance and how do we bring that abundance to us?
100 inches of snow falling in the Sierras right now, a place where the water levels had gone down to practically zero, a place that feeds Southern California the water that it needs, that keeps it from having the drought that would basically end Southern California. Well, what we're dealing with here is massive climate irregularities. Why? Because we've entered a Maunder cycle minimum for solar activity, sunspots, solar flares. That's what creates and drives the 9 ocean currents. That's what creates our weather. Anyone who says otherwise just simply doesn't understand how the world works. Anyone who wants to talk about climate that doesn't have in that same sentence the word sun, our sun, which drives all climate, is simply stupid. And so if you look at the cycles, don't be worried. The reason we're having so many volcanoes and the entire ring of fire is lit up like just amazingly, just an amazing amount of volcanoes going off right now. Underwater volcanoes, we've seen tsunamis from underwater volcanoes, and we've also seen weather anomalies, and we're actually going to see cold weather now. Why? Because that's what happens in the solar minimum, and we're at not a 22-year solar minimum, we're at a very large multi-100-year solar minimum. And if you don't know these things, you might get a little bit worried. But don't worry, there's no such thing that the humans are affecting climate on the earth. One single volcano emits more particles of ash that cause the sun not to get through clouds, and then that causes the earth to cool. So the more volcanoes you have, the more cooling there's going to be. And so dropping all these chemtrail nonsense bug spray in the sky is insanity. All you have to do is wait for a solar minimum and you're going to have the same effect and the earth is going to cool off. This is just insanity. Who are these scientists? Take them all out, take away their degrees, take them out of universities to make sure they do not poison children with this nonsense. And let's get back.
They're busy doing that with vaccinations.
That's correct. And with fluoride in the water and all these other poisons. Just get back to basics, folks. Climate comes from sun.
Yes, but bringing up the point again, because we're going through this, you say at least 100-year cold cycle, we need to think about how we're going to be growing our food. And so that's why I'm saying we've got to look at more efficient ways of energy, and we need to look at all the amazing technology out there. But we can't, because our U.S. Patent Office is run by British-controlled Serco, which is suppressing all this technology. And why they do that is that keeps us enslaved in their prison planet. Okay, well, I have to, paint the picture for people. Sometimes they don't understand why we bother with these details unless they see the bigger picture. Next tweet. Nancy Pelosi and some of the Democrats turned down my offer yesterday before I even got up to speak. They don't see crime and drugs. They only see 2020, which they are not going to win. Best economy. They should do the right thing for the country and allow people to go back to work.
Plus, Nancy didn't even address anything that was in his offer, and his offer had already been made, as we pointed out, to the world and to the Congress in writing quite some time ago. And it's the same offer he made in his presentation last night. Why he went at 4 instead of 3, we don't know, but I loved what you said. This was simply him catching her being stupid because she wrote her response to his statement before he made it. And even if she did pay attention to the letter that he sent to Congress, she didn't address any of those points, and she didn't address any of the points that he made. So, what do you got here? I'm just going to add a few things. When he said they don't see crime, I'm going to add they invite crime, the Democrats, the demon rats, the leftists, the progressives. Progress to where? Where are they progressing to? Fascism, socialism, chaos Marxism. They've never worked. Socialism has never worked. Why anybody would listen to someone preaching socialism is beyond my imagination as a historian. It has never worked, and right now we've seen that some of the experiments in socialism that were claiming they worked just got completely invaded because of their socialist open borders policies. And what happened? They got invaded and their social systems have collapsed. So I would say they support crime. They endorse crime. They invite crime. And when he says the best economy, I want to go back and point something out. Reagan and the Republicans, and then later the Democrats, though they didn't really admit it openly, always believed the only good economy is a war economy. That is the reason Barack Obama was at war every day of his 8 years as president. Because they believe that the war economy drives the military-industrial complex, which then, owns the Fortune 500 and drives everything else, blah, blah, blah. Oh, that's very nice, but that's wrong. Trump is showing them peace. Peace can be the strongest economy of all. And so this Bushism of the best economy is based upon a war economy. Trump is the great disruptor. He has taken these kind of ideas and smashed them to pieces. He has smashed them so bad that he has disrupted globalism to the point that they are all insane. They all set their hair on fire years ago. They gave up. The Bilderberger Society doesn't meet. The Trilateralists doesn't meet. When was you heard anything from the Council on Foreign Relations? When have you heard us taking any nonsense from Britain, which we didn't point out through decoding Trump tweets, that Trump was doing some really exposure deals with Britain to show how corrupt Britain and France are and the way they're not our friends. And so what is he doing? This is not just disrupting the globalists. This is the end of globalism. And when he gets reelected in 2020, goodbye globalism. People won't even remember that it ever existed, just like climate change. It'll be forgotten from the annals of time because it will be simply laughed at.
Because there is another economic model that we've never tried before, but will work, and that is one of peace and prosperity and abundance. We don't need to be holding back on the world, on our resources. We have so much. We've only been led through our lack of education to think that there is a lack. The next tweet. No, amnesty is not a part of my offer. It is a 3-year extension of DACA. Amnesty will be used only on a much bigger deal, whether on immigration or something else. Likewise, there will be no big push to remove the 11 million plus people who are here illegally. But be careful, Nancy.
I just love it. Who else could even ever do anything like this? He has the power. And so what he says is, hey, I'm not going to push to get rid of the 11 million documented illegal aliens. And really, it's 22. He's being conservative here. But the point is 11 million, so he won't get any flack. He has to be careful. He can't be like us, Betsy. He can't just speak the truth blatantly because it would make them all go crazy. For instance, we told everybody that what he was saying, and we decoded that. He wasn't offering amnesty to DACA. He was extending it so that it would go to a Supreme Court decision, and by then, that was a political stall. By then, he'll have Ruth out and maybe others out, hopefully John Roberts out. And
the wall's already being built, so...
And the wall is up here. I just want to point out, we were so 100% right in decoding these things. So when people came back and gave him flack saying, you offered amnesty. No, he did not. He did not offer amnesty. That was a political stall. And now he clearly states it is a 3-year extension of an illegal action taken by Obama. In other words, he's not going to simply send it back to the Ninth Circuit Court 100 times. He is going to wait until the Supreme Court is ready, stall it for 3 years. Oh, that gives plenty of time for old Ruth to die.
But Thomas, but the Democrats, the leadership, knows that that's what Trump did, so that's why they're pushing back on it. But they can't educate everyone in their base. Everyone in their base is going to think that this means amnesty.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's brilliant.
That's what
so it's saying. An information war, and we really played off the ignorance of their base.
DACA are now Republicans. Thank you, Pelosi. Thank you, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who doesn't even know the difference between a Democrat and a Republican and hasn't... Oh, well. Anyway, and he's talking about these crazies in the Democratic Party they're just beautiful. It is just wonderful. We can't wait to see the impeachment attempts because they're going to go, excuse me, you can't put forth impeachment without a crime. What was the crime?
Orange man bad?
He's an orange man. I don't like his hair. I don't like the way he talks. Oh, sorry. Anyway, so it's just hysterical.
The winning just feels so good, doesn't it?
Yeah, and remember, what he's saying here is very clear. You jerks are trying to stop me from doing my job as the commander-in-chief and as the chief executive of our government. It's my job to remove those 11 million. If you want me to get rid of your Democratic votes in California, then I will. If you want to push the issue, Nancy, be careful. You might not be reelected if you don't have your illegal aliens voting for you. It is Trump's job to do these things. It is Congress's job to create immigration laws. It was never Obama's job to write executive orders, which really weren't even executive orders, ordering Homeland Security, ICE, and immigration not to do their job. In other words, to act illegally. DACA is illegal. That is what the Supreme Court will have to rule unless Congress gets some good immigration laws together, which he keeps begging them to do, but they don't want to do.
Okay. Nancy Pelosi has behaved so irrationally and has gone so far to the left that she has now officially become a radical Democrat. She is so petrified of the lefties in her party that she's lost control. And by the way, clean up the streets in San Francisco. They are disgusting. I think he meant to say that it was a shithole.
Good decode. Well, I would have to say that was, we're getting nods from the conclave. You hit that one on the head. That's exactly what he was saying. And I didn't quite go there, but I thought that, of course, because look what the lefties have done in California. I say, somebody said that with the money, we should just forget the wall between California and Mexico and just create a wall between California and America, because it is getting that bad. And as you can see, in San Diego, in LA, in all throughout California, any place that it's warm, people are on the streets.
Well, of course, you do want to be up here in the north with all this snow and be homeless. Of course, you're going to go to a warm climate.
It is because of the illegal aliens overrunning California that people are out on the
let's
street.
think about the people who've lost their homes because of MERS.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, there are a lot of people that are homeless right now that are not illegal aliens.
And a lot of those are our veterans, folks. A lot of those are our heroes who fought for us having our democracy and our republic and our U.S. Constitution. So what are we looking at? We are looking at California being a socialist state, and he's referring to the lefties and the crazies that we were just laughing at, who don't even know where they're at, what job they're doing, and don't understand that they need to be supporting America and not Palestine and not Sharia law. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. Anyone who has not looked carefully at socialism ought to. It never has worked, Bernie. It never has worked, democratic socialists who have gone so far to the left. And they're progressive to the left. For what purpose? Here's the purpose: this Tavistock agenda, the Frankfurt School agenda. It's called social chaos, the destruction of all societal, all religious, and all moral structure that keeps society together. And what's the number one thing that can destroy a society? Open borders. George Soros, open borders. Privy Council, open borders. The same people in the Privy Council helped start the George Soros' Open Borders Foundation. It is an invitation to invade other countries, and they think now that this is some type of human right. Here's what it is. Pelosi is a traitor. She has left the gate open for the enemy. She and anyone like her, and they ought to give a test with a lie detector that if they're for open borders, they should be arrested. They can't be a politician.
Well,
they can't be in law enforcement. They can't be in the FBI, the CIA, or anything else where they have to obey the law. So simply give them a lie detector test and put them in jail. Pelosi is a traitor. She is inviting, and we've gone over that recently when you were describing the crime in California. She doesn't want that crime to stop. She doesn't want the borders to be closed. That's where she makes her illegal money. So, what we're seeing here now, these are traitors. This is far beyond treason, sedition. These are open war actors firing upon their own people.
Whew. How do you really feel about that?
It kind of gets me upset because anyone who's been in the military and anyone who knows people who've put their life down for America, whether it was created by a false flag or not, ought to have some respect for the law enforcement agents who are losing their lives at the southern border. And if they don't call that a war, then they need to go down there and secure that border themselves. Nancy, you and all your lefty demos, get on down there and protect that border because people are dying. No. None of them have even been to the border. They went to Puerto Rico. She was taking her family on a trip that she says she was going to, Nancy was going to Afghanistan with her family, and then said she was should know that she couldn't take a private airplane, had to take a military airplane because she was going into a war zone. A war zone with who? With your family? 93 congressional member family? This was a party. This was a picnic. What are you talking about?
Are you kidding? Some people say that she's running. She's on the run.
Well, she's an idiot. Like I said, it was the greatest thing, and it was one of the funniest jokes Trump ever said when he congratulated her on winning the gavel, because she's an idiot. She's the best person for the Republican Party to be in charge of the Democratic House. Oh, best.
Whew, okay. Well, Nancy, I'm still thinking about the State of the Union speech. Oh, there's so many options, including doing it as per your written offer made during the shutdown. Security is no problem, and my written acceptance. While a contract is a contract, I'll get back to you soon.
A liar and an idiot. She tried to say that the Secret Service is off on furlough. No, they're not. And she tried to say that's who was in charge of the State of the Union. No, it's not. And she said that they didn't have security for members of the House. That's not true. You're just an idiot. I don't know how they elected her. I know she says whatever they tell her to say, but she can't even read the papers that they give her. And now notice they give it to her in very, very large print. And then she gets confused with the papers and gets confused so bad that she had 4 pieces of paper. She lost 2 of them, didn't even say any of the words on it, then made a joke after into the microphone saying, well, I guess they didn't really have anything much to say since I can't remember what was on them. No, it's because you didn't write them, and you're just like a George W. Bush, baby Bush, who simply read what he was handed by Dick Cheney. He had no idea what he was saying. Nancy Pelosi, you are a very clever politician, and you know all of the evil political words, but you have no logic anymore. No one can follow your dumb logic because it doesn't work.
Well, let's just be frank here. She's an aging old woman who may have dementia. She doesn't have all of her faculties. She's in a very high stress position. The lefties are going to ruin her party. I'm just surprised if we don't see some serious illness or death with her. This is a lot of stress.
I hope she stays alive for the next 2 years, because then this 3-ring circus with many clowns and many elephants is just hysterical to watch. Folks, just sit back and enjoy the show, and, it's just one massive mother of all bombs after the next.
Well, let's just pour some more salt on Nancy's wounds. Wow, just heard that my poll numbers with Hispanic has gone up 19% to 50%. That is because they know the border issue better than anyone. They want security, which can only be gotten with a wall.
If those statistics are correct, he just won the 2020 election. That's why it's so funny. That's why he's saying this. That's why he's not even making a big deal out of it, and that's why he's putting it with the border issue. Because why? Those statistics just gave him the election. All right? Now, let's look at the other part of this.
Yeah.
Why are those statistics, why did they happen?
No, go ahead.
They happened because you can bet your bottom dollar that illegal aliens don't want more illegal aliens in America. That takes away all of their opportunity. That's stupid. That draws attention to them. That's stupid. That draws down on all the funds.
In that statement, you're assuming that all the Hispanics are all illegal. How about regular American Hispanics who are just saying, I don't want these people in my country. Why do you think I left that country down there?
Well, I was going there next.
Okay.
And then every single legal immigrant certainly doesn't want illegal aliens and wants a border and wants a process. And that's the reason the numbers are going up. It's for both legal and illegal everyone. Because if you have been in a foreign country and you came to America and you don't appreciate it, then you're a criminal and you don't belong here and we want you out. We don't want you in our jails clogging everything up, costing us money. On and on I could go. What we want is the simple truth of what he just said right here in this statement. It doesn't need too much decoding except to say this is unheard of, it's unprecedented, and it just won Donald J. Trump the 2020 election.
But it's what it doesn't say that's so exciting, because in all these tweets and all of the news, we've got the BuzzFeed, the outright media lying, we've got Nancy Pelosi and the border. But in the meantime, we've got federal workers sitting out there, these senior executive service operatives that have got to be sweating it big time because day 30 has just arrived. Tomorrow is the 31st. What do you think's going to happen?
Well, they haven't looked closely enough. They think in the mainstream media that they've written off the administrative and the lack of funding of a type of furlough. And they're mistaken about that. After 30 days, as long as they write an administrative plan, you can enter into an RIF, a reduction of force. You can also build in the Holman plan and say all SES members will now be paid $1 for the year. There's all kinds of crafty things. He has threatened all kinds of things here, you see. He could simply start deporting the 11 million illegal aliens so that as they're pouring over the border, we're deporting them faster than they are coming across. That will make sure that the Democrats don't have their votes in 2020. He has many things that he can do here.
Okay, the next tweet. Don't forget, we are building and renovating big sections of the wall right now, moving quickly and will cost far less than previous politicians thought possible. Building, after all, is what I do best, even when money is not readily available.
Now, I've been in a knockdown drag-out with members of the conclave, and I just want to say to those who aren't here today, who are listening, look, we went over this again today, and let me make it exactly perfectly clear in case I wasn't clear before and I may have misrepresented the aggregate amalgamated agreement of many of our conclave members, and that is the following. Trump did not say he needs $5.7 billion for 234 miles of wall unless he knew that that's all he needed to build. And the reason is he just paid $1.5 billion for 153 miles for a wall, which has yet to be built. That contract was just secured, 8 or 9, 10 days ago. Okay? So that's not the 153 he's talking about. Add the 153, add the 234, and you say, wait a second, Mr. President, even if you spent, $2.5 billion on your 234 miles left, what are you doing with the rest of the money? Well, that's the whole point. There are parts where we can't even put in a border. If you have looked at the winding nature of some of the rivers that have to be crossed when you try to get through our southern border, it is impervious. No one can make it. And then when you put a laser inside of our border that is invisible, you can count everything. And if you put then cameras, and if you put stationary surveillance through satellites, and if you put sensors and you put motion detectors, you don't have to have a wall. You have a barrier. So he did not ask for $5.7 billion to finish the barrier, and that's not counting the 1.5 for the 153. And right here in this tweet is the proof. Unless he intends to use the rest of it to secure, through other means, the rest of the border. There's 600 miles that is impassable. And it's debatable whether you want to count it as 1,800 or 2,000. But count it as 1,800. That's 1,200. right here, right. If you look at what's already built, there's very little and very many ways to secure what's left. Now, he says, don't forget. He hasn't reminded us not to forget. He hasn't reminded us, and now he says, don't forget. Hello, this is 100% complete proof, this and the previous tweet, that he is listening to our decodes. Nobody has pointed out what we pointed out. No one in the mainstream media, no one in the alternative media has pointed out what I'm talking about right at this moment, what the conclave, what Betsy and her team and Aim for Truth has figured out. And that's why he says, don't forget, we are building and renovating big sections of wall right now. Okay, what does that mean? He's rubbing it in their face, folks. We are building and renovating. The renovating is the $50 billion that was sitting around that nobody was using, called the Fences Act, which had been sitting in accounts not being used. And that's the why he says, even when money is not readily available. He's not telling you where he's getting that money, but he's telling you clearly that he is actively building and has been. Obviously, he says, don't forget, actively, since I came to power, I've been building and renovating big sections of the wall right now. And even as he speaks, there are, as I've pointed out, sections that are completely a wall. They're not steel slats. They are a wall, and that wall has been reinforced, and barbed wire has been put on it, and we have a more secure border now than ever before. And when he talks about getting $5.7 billion, you can imagine that literally in a matter of months, the barrier that he wants will be completed. It will not be a wall from sea to shining sea. That's not what he ever planned. And yes, the money already from that he has saved from NAFTA and with the new agreement has already been more than enough money to build the wall.
But you've got Nancy Pelosi's base, who are the senior executive service and the furloughed employees and the illegals, the DACA, who are all upset because she won't make a deal because they want their money. So he has weaponized her base against her.
Absolutely.
It's just brilliant. You gotta love this man. Hey, we want to get rid of the cheesecake in the conclave, and from now on, we're serving Mar-a-Lago turkey burgers strictly.
Which is one of my favorite. I just want to say, Mr. President, thank you for your recipe down there, because we love it and we eat it all the time. But yes, it is. It's absolutely genius. We're the only ones who have been holding back. But we've told you, go back and listen to the tapes. We've told you for the last 2 years. Listen to the audios. For the last 2 years, we've been saying behind the scenes he was using the money in the states for the Fencing Act to secure as much as he can without anybody really saying a word, because they never ever say that he does anything good. So as he was doing this good, he's now almost complete. So in the end, when he wants to, if he wants to, declare a national emergency and move the military in, he's going to complete that wall faster than you can blink an eye. And it's just going to be beautiful. And then he'll come back and still defeat Pelosi while the government is still out on furlough. He can do all of this right now. Right. And what is she saying? Not $1 for the wall. Right. Walls don't work. They're immoral. So here you have the perfect example. What do the Democrats have? Virtue signaling, rhetoric,
they've got George
lies.
Soros's money.
And border, open society, open border logic. And that's what they base everything on, is what George Soros and the Privy Council of Britain has used to basically control the world for a long, long time. And that's what we're dealing with here, folks. This is an invasion. This is calculated. And Pelosi is a traitor. And this is sedition. And anyone who would vote against securing our border, especially when it is under attack, evidently, by anyone who wants to look, you cannot come up with a logical response to the fact that we are under attack and we need to secure our borders, or we will be just like the European Union that is right now trying to get the migrants out.
And just when you think it couldn't get better, here's the final tweet of the day. He's thanking David Wohl, who wrote, "Journalism is dead. The circus clowns who ran with the fake BuzzFeed story today are nothing more than hatchet men for the DNC. As always, Trump was proven right."
I like the sentiment of this because journalism is dead. We pointed out that there's no investigative journalism going on whatsoever in the mainstream media. It is all simply coming up with nice pictures and sound bites for what they're reading from the avid ISIS management prompters. That's all it is. Except when places like BuzzFeed make huge mistakes like the one they just made, or like the one they made when they printed Michael Isikoff's article, which was actually written by Christopher Steele. Huge mistakes. Had BuzzFeed not printed the dossier, no one would have ever read it, and it would have done what it was supposed to have done. Trump would probably be impeached because of the question of Russian collusion instead of, oh, none of this is verified, it's all salacious, stated by John Brennan, stated by Comey himself, and yet they used it for the FISA warrant. So BuzzFeed, keep making your huge mistakes as you always do. And yes, they're hatchet men for the DNC. If you don't think that the Democratic National Committee is a criminal organization, then you need to look at the way that it came out of the Chicago mob criminal organization. And what you will see is a transference from Chicago to D.C., and basically it hasn't left. And yes, Trump was proven right. Now, what you need to remember is Cohen is a slime ball. Cohen had tapes that incriminated his own clients as backup, lots of them. Okay? In other words, he's as criminal as it gets. When you exist in a Shark Tank, you hire the biggest legal shark you can. And that shark is paid a retainer. And that shark is literally there to run interference, to be a buffer for you. And that's why Cohen says that he pleaded guilty to paying money to Stormy Daniels and another whore. It doesn't matter. That's not Trump's money. That's your money. No money was written to them from Trump. There's no check. So that was your money. You do lots of things like that. You cover, that's what the lawyers do, especially when they're dealing with someone who's a billionaire. And so you get the slimiest lawyer you can. Everybody knows Cohen's dad, total slime bag, Ukrainian slime bag, fraudulent. You go real estate fraud. You don't have time to hear about all of that. So he's scamming everybody, Cohen was, for even his connection to Trump. Do you realize that Mueller didn't bring this out? That Cohen had charged all kinds of people around the whole world because he convinced them that he was Trump's right-hand man and had Trump's ear, and when Trump becomes the president, then you pay me a retainer, a $50,000, $100,000 retainer, and I'm going to slide your way, a heads up if something that is connected to you is affected by what I can see being right there in the White House. No one knows how many people he did that to, but he also recorded them when he did that. So that was blackmail to people who paid him blackmail money to be a leaker. Now, he had nothing to leak, and so what they say he leaked, and that's the big funny thing, the guy they say is the Russian. Anytime you say Russian in the Cohen Manafort thing, you have to say Ukrainian. Okay? Because Cohen, his dad, is a Ukrainian. Okay? They're Russian. You can't say Ukrainian without saying Russian. And a Russian is a Ukrainian, and a Ukrainian is a Russian. Okay? And the connections at the top are so thin, paper thin, diaphanous, that Yanukovych 1 minute was a Russian supporter and the next minute a non-Russian European Union supporter. That's what got him basically kicked out of office twice in the Ukraine. So when you're talking about Cohen, you're talking also about the fact that Christopher Steele, he worked in the Ukraine. Over 100 reports that he made to Victoria Nuland and the rest of the criminals who staged the two George Soros color revolutions in Ukraine to depose Viktor Yanukovych, who, by the way, was being supported and got those positions because of who? Paul Manafort and Rick Gates. And they and their company, along with Tony Podesta and his company and his brother John, were paid equally by the same people in the Ukraine who, yes, they were Russians, but they were also Ukrainian oligarchs. And so, who's more guilty here? But what happens? Oh, they turned the whole thing. But we told you from the beginning they'd get Manafort. Manafort was under investigation before he was then recommended to the Trump team as the person who can get him through the Electoral College. And by golly, he sure did get him through the Electoral College, because Paul Manafort is a wizard in terms of perception management, a wizard in terms of behavioral change, changing people's minds. He also knows more blackmail on people than anybody else. And when Roger Stone was no longer involved in the campaign, his partner, Paul Manafort, stepped in and, yes, did carry it through for him. But let's remember, that's like Reince Priebus. Trump has used all kinds of globalists, and then he kicks them out on the way out, saying, thank you for teaching me all of your crooked ways. Now I know how to get around these globalist pigs. Goodbye. Don't let the door hit you in the rear. And so do not be surprised by whoever he appoints. Whoever he appoints.
But what about this William Barr guy for AG?
Well, he has an agreement with him. Just
well,
like
he's
he
a
has an
senior
agreement.
executive service guy, too.
You can't hire anybody that's going to be approved in the confirmation
They're
hearings.
all swamps. What is he going to do? Is his strategy just to leave all these creatures out there in the swamp and just let them eat each other for as long as it takes?
No, it's all about temporary political gain. It's about these people going against the grain, working for Trump's agenda, and if they mess up, he fires them. Why do you think Kristen Nielsen isn't gone? Notice now she's doing her job.
Yeah.
Notice now she's doing her job for the first time since she was
that's because
appointed.
her professional pairing has been separated.
Correct. She no longer has the backup
of Kelly
threatening Trump. So what happened when she didn't want to do her job and has not given a good report on the elections, because had she done her job, she'd tell you of the corruption of the elections.
Christopher Strunk gave them, that department, the full disclosure of everything, the software, the election rigging boxes, everything.
All of the material they need to indict all of the people that should have been indicted. Well, now look what she's doing. Oh, she might as well be on the border fighting the caravan off with her bare hands. Okay, that's what happens. So that's what's going to happen with Barr. That's what happens with anyone that he hires, except that some of them
but they don't know it yet.
A little bit stupider than he thought, or a little bit more clever than he thought. Remember, he does not know the ways of Washington, D.C. He knows the ways of what drives Washington, D.C., New York City. And New York City drives D.C., okay? And you can't say D.C. without saying New York City. And it's the banks of New York City that have driven our economy from the beginning.
And you want to write something about, you came up the other day and said you had some ideas in your mind about the banksters.
Well, I want to write about Lord Shelburne and about Jeremy Bentham, because really they're the archetypal corporate warlord banking pigsters. And they basically set up what then Cecil Rhodes dreamed about and wrote about in his will, and then Viscount Alfred Milner then carried out through the Round Table and the Council on Foreign Relations and what we see right now. And the Federal Reserve, the whole thing. It all goes back to really the corporatism of the British East India Company, which was a manifestation of the cream of the crop of the Venetian, Lombardian, Swiss, German, Dutch, British bankers, and particularly what were called the court Jews, because the court Jews, when they were then outstripped by the Venetian Lombards, then became what we know as the lineage that leads us to our banking warlords right now, literally the very families that have come out of these German, Dutch, and British families. And so, yes, I want to write on that, because when it comes to corporatism, that's what we're talking about here. Cohen is a perfect corporate pig. He and his many medallions for taxicabs, both in New York and Chicago, that's what the mob gets. The only one who doesn't get that would be the lawyer who's better than the mob. All right? And so Cohen's stepfather first had these, and then Cohen got them. How did Cohen get them? Because he's a bigger, muscular mob, mafia, oligarch, Russian, Ukrainian, dirty lawyer. You cannot, here's the big deal.
Well, what's up with the black eye and the arm that he supposedly had surgery on? Or did he get roughed up?
He got beat up because he is the one who leaked this to BuzzFeed. Hello? I mean, don't people understand that he got beat up because he leaked it? It was too long.
Who beat him up?
Felix Sater beat him up.
Oh, Felix. He's back on the scene again.
Well, the FBI, through Felix Sater and through some underworld thugs, probably beat him up. Why? Because Cohen had fingered the deals in Moscow to build the Trump Tower, which was a Felix Sater deal, the deal in Crimea and the deal in Georgia. And if Felix Sater comes out, the whole thing is then uncovered. Felix Sater ain't going to jail. Felix Sater will turn on all of them. He has already turned on them. He is an FBI asset. The fact that he is an FBI asset shows that since they used his information and intelligence for the Carter Page FISA warrant, which Comey had to swear that Carter Page was 100% a proven Russian spy to get that domestic Title I FISA warrant, that was based upon the work that he got and the intelligence he got from Felix Sater and from Sergei Milian Parachenko. I keep saying this. No one in the press wants to do anything with this. Felix Sater's name came up the other day. Remember, Felix Sater was connected to Cohen, trying to say they put forth sanctions. That was to knock out Flynn and knock out Carter Page and knock out George Papadopoulos. That little trick of saying that he had given a letter to Cohen and Cohen had given a letter to Trump and Trump had acted on the letter to give sanctions to Russia, that would have taken them all down. This is Felix Sater actively working. He was behind all these things. Felix Sater is the front man who went to Franklin Furor for Slate, who came up with the fake Trump Tower connection to the Alpha Bank people. I mean...
You were talking about that back in 2017.
When it happened.
I know, you were right there on it.
I don't know why people can't catch up. What I do want to say, though, in relationship to all of that, and I'm going to be quiet after that, and that's the following. All over the place, you see people apologizing for their misstatements, going back on what they said, many times going back on what they said without apologizing, completely changing their tune. Now Horowitz is not a white hat. Now Huber is not a white hat.
No,
now
they say
Lausch
now
is not a white
Mueller's
hat.
working with Trump.
And now
Rod
they say Mueller's a
Rosenstein
white
is
hat.
helping.
Okay, they say Sessions a white hat. Sorry, we pointed all their crimes out and why all those people were going to do what they did do, which is basically obfuscate and hide the trail of guilt. And only Andrew McCabe so far is having a trial, and as we know, he'll probably get very little any type of indictment or any kind of anything. I mean, look at the big leaker out of the Senate Intelligence Committee, where the entire dossier was flopped around, where Christopher Steele was invited by the Senate Intelligence Committee in March of 2016 to come over and tell them all about Trump's illegal connections to Trump and to Russia and to Putin and all that. Hello? One guy who gave out everything to his girlfriend prostitute. And what does he get? What did he get? I forget. Was it less than a year? I think it was much less than even that. James Wolfe. So James Wolfe, the only leaker they can catch in all of this, although Comey is institutionalized leaking, McCabe is institutionalized leaking, on down the list, institutionalized leaking in all departments.
How about the crimes and the treason?
And no one goes to jail. And only James Wolfe gets the lightest sentence you can get. And Andrew McCabe is still in a hidden grand jury indictment trial, and he's probably going to get off, and we'll probably never know what happens. So that's what really is going on, that Felix Sater probably beat up Michael Cohen, his lifelong good buddy from his childhood.
Right.
Do not forget this.
They were childhood friends.
Felix Sater goes to jail if Michael Cohen doesn't go to jail. And Michael Cohen can't tell the truth. That's the reason they caught him lying. That's the reason they got him to lie about his plea that he was guilty for election campaign illegalities, which that's not illegal what he did. Trump didn't pay anybody. He paid them. Therefore, it has nothing to do with the election. And that's a lie. That was to make it look like Trump did something wrong. That has now fizzled out. Everything to do with Cohen is fizzled out. Everything to do with Manafort is fizzled out. With Carter Page, with Papadopoulos. Everything is fizzled because Trump has nothing to be guilty for. There's no collusion. There's no corruption. There's no obstruction. There's no conspiracy.
It's a false flag run by Mueller. Now, what's Mueller's play?
Mueller's play is he came out and had to retract, had to make sure that BuzzFeed didn't tell that big fat lie told to them by Mr. Cohen. You see? Well, then that abnegates the entire grand jury, and now it has to be closed because they came out and they told you what's supposed to be secret. Well, every single day something comes out and Mueller hasn't come out to say that's a lie, and they're all lies. Right? So what does this mean? It means he's hiding something so powerful, so damnable, that he's willing to put the whole thing on the line, and that's because Michael Cohen tried to say that he was part of the Trump Tower deal when he was not. It was all Felix Sater, and we know that for a fact, and we've proven it.
I'm going to say that what Mueller's hiding is that he doesn't know that all of us out here know how complicit he was with the cover-up of 9/11. And he's trying to protect the swamp in his position as special counsel, running this false flag, and now he's getting a little worried that it's getting a little too close to home. That's what I say.
Absolutely, because as we said from the beginning, the longer he continues the witch hunt, the more he's going to reveal his crimes. And his crimes are huge. Uranium One, he delivered the yellow cake.
Woo.
He protected Putin's agents in this country for 10 years with Andrew McCabe being his right-hand man. He did all the crimes for the Bush family and for the Clinton family. He'll work both sides of it. He is such a criminal that we can't even go on 911. He helped plan it. He then did the cover-up. He made sure the commission never got anywhere. He made sure nothing was ever investigated. And now everyone's going, hey, isn't he the guy who should have found out who did 911?
So I'm telling you, he's wrapping it up because he wants to get out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, he's getting in the corner where the Russian oligarchs may come after him.
Oh, this is wonderful.
Yeah. Now, last time somebody even mentioned the name of this Russian oligarch, they were dead within 24 hours. They mentioned his name in a Russian news agency. The person was dead within 24 hours. You don't even say this man's name.
Okay,
I've said his name.
Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about Mueller.
I've said his name for people because people ask me to, and I just to prove it to them. But it's very simple. All you have to do is go look up Felix Sater's father, and Felix Sater's father works as basically the head of the Russian mafia in New York City. Hello? People didn't know this, I guess. And so when Felix Sater got in huge trouble with the SEC and he was going to have some charges brought against him, he did some time, and his dad, I believe, did some time. And then he was in a fight, and he used I forget what it was, some type of glass to hit somebody in the head and almost killed somebody because he's got a very violent temper. And he's just this funny, short, little, mean dude, and so they locked him up, and then they turned him into an FBI asset. Then they used him on a number of assignments, and not long ago, about a couple years ago, they actually gave him an award for being an FBI hidden asset, one of these ones like James Comey had with the guy at the New York Times, where you're actually a paid informant, but not really. You're not really an FBI agent, but you are.
But was Felix Sater an FBI informant at the time that Mueller was at the FBI?
Yes.
So Mueller knows Felix Sater in that capacity.
And then he handed him over to Comey, and Comey did stupid stuff with him. Okay. So let's remember the genesis of this. Okay. And I'm going to get a little bit distracted, but the DNC found that they had this Russian problem because Uranium One, so they had to create a Russian story. So in March, they started working with Christopher Steele and Cody Shira and Glenn Simpson, anybody who could write dirt on Trump. They worked so hard to get all the dirt. And so immediately, Comey went and John McCain went to the Senate Intelligence Committee and said, we need to activate every Russian agent that we have, every Russian asset. And that's what happened. And so Comey activated the following: Felix Sater, Carter Page, and Sergei Pachinko. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. So what happened with Felix Sater. He used him to try to set up Trump immediately with these fake deals in Russia. He used Felix to set up the Franklin's Furor thing. He used Felix to go and to search for the PP document, the PP video. He used Sergei Milian, who he literally was paid a huge amount of money from the CIA because John Brennan got so upset that Sergei wasn't doing his job for Comey that he called him in and said, listen, I'm going to pay you money. I want that video. And then remember, John Brennan was one of the first people when all this started to travel to Russia. To do what? To get the intel that the CIA gave that went into the Christopher Steele dossier. Everyone had their part in it. Felix Sater was only the tip of the iceberg. He was like the Stepin Fetchit guy for Comey. Then Felix Sater tried to set up Michael Cohen with the letter.
Yeah, but the problem is that Felix's daddy is bigger than all the players you just named.
Correct. He could squish Mueller with his little finger.
Oh, this is rich. So that's why Mueller was so hard and so fast on contradicting the BuzzFeed fake news article.
Which basically just destroyed his entire investigation because he said it came from him. In other words, the special counsel just abnegated the case by, there's a technical name for it, but he muddied the water. And so he basically ended the case. Why would he do that? Of course, it's not going to end the case. But why would he come out and make that statement? Because BuzzFeed's the idiot who let the dossier out, and he knows that they're so stupid that they'd take Michael Cohen's stupid law enforcement people, sources, who said that blah, blah, blah. Okay? So they were tricked. BuzzFeed was tricked and told partial truth as kind of a attempt of Michael Cohen to muscle Mueller. But what really happened, because Michael Cohen has to go and testify before the Congress in just a few days, and because Michael Cohen has already proven himself to lie on everything, whatever Mueller wanted, that's what Cohen testified and pled guilty to. Remember that. Mueller just wrote out his list, and that's what he testified. 3 years. Because 3 years is nothing. For the crimes that he should go down for, and the crimes they found in that security locker of Cohen's, would put him away for life.
But what happens if he's asked in this testimony, what if Cohen is asked about Felix Sater? What happens then?
That's why Felix beat him up. Felix or some of his friends simply beat him up and said, this is a warning. If you say one word about me, you're dead.
And I'll bet you none of the Congress people say Felix Sater's name either.
Of course not. They all are paid by people like Oleg Deripaska. And if they're paid by one of these people, Bill Browder, Oleg Deripaska, or Leonid Blavatnik, every person in Congress receives money from them because they get money through the U.S. Chamber of Commerce.
So what we need to do is get a list of who is going to be attending the hearings, and I'll get that all teed up on Truth News headlines, and then everybody needs to contact the Congress people there and say, ask about Felix Sater.
Felix Sater is the scum of the earth. He is a pathetic little man who can't even follow in his father's footsteps and take on the
let's not get
family
personal.
business. Well, I'm just saying.
Okay.
And so he has come out, and the reason I can say this openly is this has all been out in the news. I'm not saying anything that's new. Anybody can look this up and read it. You can get videos of him bragging about himself being an FBI asset, whatever you'd like. But it's that Comey acted with such impunity that he would get because McCain demanded that he get all of his Russian assets in order. So Carter Page had been used to put a couple Russians in jail because he gave them a folder with this report that he wrote. And in the folder was a bug, was a listening device. And it went all the way back to Russia. And so Carter Page, who they called the useful idiot, actually bugged the Russians, and it went all the way to the Kremlin. And so the Russians were very happy with that, and they arrested one guy for fraud, put him in jail, blah, blah, whatever. So Carter Page was literally an asset of the FBI. He knew he was doing this work too. and Carter Page did. And so he was an asset. So when he was implanted in the Trump campaign, it was to implant someone that they were going to say was a Russian spy, not a Russian asset, not someone on the FBI payroll. Carter Page was on the FBI payroll. He was caught. He went through the entire indictment process and then had a gag order on him as the star witness for the case against these Russians. I mean, good heavens. He was a FBI asset, and then he was used unwittingly because they called him a useful idiot, and they called him a wackadoodle. They sent him into the Trump campaign. And then they were going to say, ah, ha, 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 we have a Russian in your campaign, and we will have James Comey. And now here's the thing. You're not going to hear this anywhere else. And of course, I've said this before, but I'm going to say it this time with a dramatic presentation. You will not hear this anywhere else. And here is the truth. Who cares about the FISA warrants? I've been saying this from the beginning. Those FISA warrants they're all tainted. Now, what Trump wants to release, the unredacted content of what they used as their justification, will show who all was involved. That's good. But there was no hearing.
I want to see
those
the text from Strzok and Page. I want to see what those lovers were up to.
Oh, yes, the assassins, the alleged assassins. Well, they aren't really alleged. They basically said they wanted him put in his grave, and they were going to have to carry their other weapon and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, what we're telling you here is this simple. The FISA warrants, they were signed off by 4 different, multiple officials, top officials in the Department of Justice and the FBI. And there was also accompanying documentation for Crossfire Hurricane, which showed there was no intelligence whatsoever, which makes it a false case. So the Mueller Special Investigation Crossfire Hurricane, it's been transformed into that, actually had no intelligence whatsoever. There is no evidence. There is no crime. There never was. So, what is in the FISA warrants? Who cares? What you need are the national security letters written by Peter Strzok, because they had to have been written by him, and that's the reason he was in all of those 13 different groups, including Mueller's Special Counsel investigation. He was the person who brought the national security letters to bear on the situation, which is what I said from the beginning. Before I knew of Peter Strzok, I said the second person in charge of counterintelligence of CIA, who can work for the FBI counterintelligence and can work for the Department of Justice National Security Group, is the person who will write national security letters, which will then create a special operations. It will not be an investigation. It will be a counterintelligence special operations, which they don't even have to tell the president about, even though he is the target of it. And I told all of you, this was completely legal. It's just that it had to be sneaky. So, Comey, and here's the part that's not legal, Comey signed off on those. He's the only person who could have. And that's how they got the unmasking and all the surveillance, which started back in March of 2016, folks. Not what people try to tell you, even with the July 2016 date and the fake dates for the DNC hacking, all that. No, this stuff started back in March, and it started with John McCain. Because McCain stepped up to the plate. Comey stepped up to the plate. They all stepped up to the plate. They all wanted to defend Hillary. And they all wanted to take down Trump. And they all were convinced that they could get him with some Russian collusion. And that would be how to distract people from the Uranium One dirty deals of Hillary Clinton and all of the money that she's given Putin, and the fact that she was in bed with Putin and in bed with communist China. So, what we've told you, national security letters, that's the secret here. And Peter Strzok, he's still not fired. He was only fired from the Mueller Group. He was fired from the FBI counterintelligence, but he is not fired of being a regional director for the CIA. He's not fired, folks. He is not fired. Peter Strzok is still running the Mueller investigation. Just because he stepped down, that was because there was hot water. That didn't mean anything. He came, he testified, nothing happened to him. We find out that the FISA court judges, they're all corrupt. John Roberts, all corrupt. The FISA court should be closed. Simply from what Peter Strzok said, and guess what? Nothing happened. Because why? National security. Believe it or not, they're still not going to reveal what John Brennan has revealed openly, which was there was no intelligence for the Crossfire Hurricane counterintelligence operation against the Trump campaign, and then President-elect Trump, and then President Trump, and now it's a coup d'etat. There's no evidence. Never was. The Mueller investigation, everyone involved in it knew that, and in fact were complicit with this conspiracy. So, eventually, we will see that if we could get Sergei Milian, who has now disappeared, if we could get Franklin Foerard to admit who it was that paid him, if we could get, you'll never get Michael Cohen to tell the truth about the sanctions letter, but if you could get, and they will get, and this is the funny part, and this is the part I'm going to make a prediction on, if they try to get Ivanka, Donald Jr., or Jared to testify before Congress, don't be surprised when Felix Sater's name comes up. Because Felix Sater is the person they did the deals with, and there were no deals. They went on 2 trips. He paid for all of it. He put down $100,000 to start the process of attempting to get in to basically the Chamber of Commerce in the Crimea, and Cohen and Felix Sater couldn't because he's a bozo. He's an idiot. It was fake. He was told by Comey to do that. That was one of Comey's 28 treasonous crimes that we've outlined for all of you. There were many others. And what we're seeing here is just hysterically funny. Michael Cohen got what he deserved. All of his clients should have beat him up. He's a terrible, one of the worst lawyers I've ever heard of. And mind you, they completely spit on attorney-client privilege by stealing all of his stuff, which was all privileged, and using it against him, which is all illegal, of course. That's Andrew Weissman. Later, if this was taken to any kind of an appeal, or if anyone looked at it with a second special counsel, everything that was done would have to be abnegated because of Andrew Weissman's, the way he handled stealing President-elect's Donald Trump's personal notes from the National Registry, the way that he went after Donald Trump's personal affairs, the way the FBI looked into Donald Trump's dad and Donald Trump's personal affairs, the way they wrote all that, it's all just a bunch of illegal activity. And so they can't let Felix Sater, who is literally the linchpin of the entire thing. I've said this from the beginning. I'm the only person saying this. I'm so tired of saying it. I wish somebody else would get on the bandstand and get up on their soapbox and start preaching. Arrest Felix Sater. He will turn on all of them, as he has before. And all you have to do is just let him go back to Russia. That's all he would ask. Just don't try him here for his crimes in this, and let him go back to Russia. No problem. So it could be solved that easy. Or find Sergei Milian Parachenko. Notice when they tried to say he died in a plane wreck. Remember that one? Sergei Milian is not dead, folks. Sergei Parachenko is dead. And they took down an entire plane and had it, what was it, an Oxford University professor state that he knows for a fact that now Sergei Pachenko is Sergei Milian Pachenko and that he's dead. Wrong. No, he's disappeared. He's another linchpin. If they could get him, he would turn on all of them. Carter Page is not smart enough to even know what happened to him. And George Papadopoulos is only finally waking up. And Sam Clovis, they took all of his money. They're bankrupting him. He's losing his house. So there's nobody to really stand up against Mueller. Look at what's happening to Jerome Corsi, what's happening to Roger Stone. Anyone who crosses Mueller has to use so much money for lawyers that it's the end of them. And all he gets them on is some kind of process crime. Well, you lied to them. Lied to them about what? That you didn't want Thousand Island dressing on your ham sandwich? Because basically that's all anybody he's gotten except Manafort, which he was so corrupt. Anybody could have. I could have tried Manafort and won. Okay, Manafort is completely corrupt, always has been. I mean, what did you need to know about that? That's like saying, I wonder if John and Tony Podesta are straight up, straight arrow, good moral beings. It's about the same question. So, if you can't get the Podestas, which they should have gotten them because they had not filed as foreign agents for Ukraine and these same exact oligarchs that Manafort and Rick Gates work for. So, what are we seeing here? That's what we call fake justice. And now I think, Betsy, you wanted a new name for it. What was this, fake government?
Yeah, it's fake government. But because, like you got the senior executive service, that's not real government. They're there to make sure our government doesn't operate. So we're going to have... Anyway, we got to cut it off. This is going way too long. But I would say that Trump tweets has become the greatest show on earth.